Hello and welcome everyone to a new tier list video for Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Horn of the Abyss. Today we are ranking all the tier 4 creatures. My choices are subjective and you might like some units over others that I mentioned here. Feel free to post your opinions and we can discuss it a little bit as well, of course. So let's get right into it. First up is we have the Magi. Magi are actually stacked units in terms of their actual abilities. They are shooters, but they're also melee guys because they have no melee penalty. They also give you discounts on spells. That's amazing. A very, very good utility unit because of that. And also they have the benefit of having no barrier penalty. So if you're, shooting through walls, you're not going to be suffering the extra penalty that would provide. I don't think that's actually that relevant, but in terms of features, these guys are stacked. And I really, really like them. I would actually put them at least on B tier. They're in B tier because they're not very well represented. They're not used a lot whatsoever. The reason for that is because their build path is a little bit awkward. Not only do you need to build a mage guild to build them in the first place, you also end up needing a lot of resources, 5 to all resources. That's very, very expensive, okay? And also, they are not the required build path, at least in Horn of the Abyss, to build the higher tier creatures as well. So they are not in a favorable build path. They cost a lot, and because of that, they don't actually see much play, despite being really, really good and really useful. The times that you do see them, they come from a box, or you have like a dwelling of these guys, and having at least a few of these guys in your army is like very cool. I love them a lot. And then if you take everything about the Magi and upgrade it a little bit slightly, you get the Arch Magi. You really don't want these out on the field, okay? Because you cannot win against these. I mean, at least cleanly. Because if you block them, then you get bleed anyway for full damage. If they shoot you, they get damage off for free. They're kind of hard to deal with whenever you're fighting them, and they're also really good utility when you're using them. They're good in either scenario. I really love these units a lot. I wish they saw more representation, but it is what it is. Next up is we have the Cove units. First off is the Stormbird, speed 9. And anything speed 9 cannot be that bad already, okay? They are wonderful utility for your army. They can take retiles, they can kite, they can make your heroes faster. They're decent. They don't really make a good power stack since they don't do that much damage on their own. Because of that, they are B tier in my opinion. They're good utility, but they don't really deliver anything apart from a little tiny bit of generic utility. And that's why they are on the B. But the Aces, on the other hand, holy moly, the tier 4 Wolf Raiders. These guys pack a punch. They're super, super fast, so they are very good, easy, and comfortable to use. And also, these guys, whenever they have an ability where if they kill at least one unit of a stack that you're attacking, they will attack again. These guys deal a decent amount of damage, so it's actually not that hard to kill the first unit, so you attack again. So basically, they attack twice almost every single time, like Wolf Raiders. And it's really, really powerful. Whenever you get a power stack of these guys, it's very insane how much damage they can actually do. They of course have the downside of being pretty squishy for a tier 4 unit. But despite this, I would actually put them at the top of A tier. There they go. Next up, we have very generic tier 4 unit. The Fortress one, the Basilisk. These guys have the special effect of having 20% chance to stone an enemy that they attack. That's a pretty useful ability. Whenever you're fighting AI, that chance is actually 100%. You'd never get attacked by Basilisk without getting frozen. It's just, a matter of fact, when you play the game, you will quickly find out that your Angel, whenever it wants to tank something, if Basilisks are on the other side, it will immediately get frozen, so they'll focus the more squishy parts of your army. So they're kind of annoying to deal with. Whenever you use them, you will quickly find out that you never stone an enemy. So their ability is it's not reliable, and it always does the worst possible outcome, at least from the player's perspective. And yeah, I don't like them that much. They're really, really good in the early game of Fortress because they can tank highs pretty well. They're pretty tanky, 35 HP and pretty good defense skill. But apart from being like a little bit tanky, they are pretty lackluster in terms of their feature set. Next up is the Greater Basilisk. If you amplify whatever the Basilisk does and make it a little tiny bit better, you get this unit. But being a little bit better than an average unit doesn't really net you that good of a gain. There they are. Usually this upgrade is not really worth it. You don't upgrade your Basilisk almost at all, ever, unless you get like a huge stack of them, maybe due to a few bosses, or maybe you're playing like a more poor template, and you just get a few Basilisk dwellings. Then you could make a power stack of these, and they'll be okay, but you're gonna be wishing that you were playing something else anyway. So, yeah. Next up is the castle units. Swordsmen are pretty much Basilisk, but without the stoning ability. They don't really have a lot of features, a big feature set or anything like that. They are in the main build path of Castle, so they are pretty well represented, but despite being well represented, swordsmen usually don't do anything else apart from tanking a few hits. And they're pretty slow, so they're not even that good at, repositioning, kiting, taking retals. They're just slight meat shield. For a tier 4 unit, I would expect better. So, off you go. But next up is the Crusader. Okay, listen. I adore creatures that attack twice, okay? You notice it with the Acid. Maybe you saw it with the Wolf Raider, okay? Anything that attacks twice is immediately very good in my book. And if you go and upgrade your Swordsmen to Crusaders, holy hell will they pack a punch. They'll annihilate things. And also, whenever you're fighting these out in the field, if you get attacked by these guys, you're definitely gonna feel it. These are one of the units that I really respect their damage. I think it's ludicrously big and good and nice, but still, they manage to surprise me and kill my angel sometimes, kill my big, high tier unit that is, just tanking, kiting, and doing stuff like that. These guys are a menace and also really cool, and I love them. I would put them actually A tier. Below the Acid, but above the Magi. There we go. They make for a wonderful power stack. Next is the Demons. Now, when it comes to Demons, you have to mention the main strategy aligned with the Demons, and that is the Demon farming. Pit Fiends are able to use allied corpses in order to summon demons, and they actually persist permanently. So you can actually kill your units off, maybe with Magog fireballs, maybe by just letting them brawl the enemy to death till they die. And after you successfully use your pit lords to raise demons, you just finish the fight, and then you have demons remaining. You can do this over and over and over again, as much as you have meat to sack for the sake of demons. And then you have a big stack of demons that will be able to do your toads, do your big consas, get you going into the game. Really popular strategy, especially back in the Shadow of Death days, and also more poor templates as well. It's a very powerful strategy, but it requires a lot of micromanagement, so it actually fell out of favor just because it's not that really fun to play with. Despite this strategy puts demons in B tier. They make for one of the best power stacks in the early game if you invest into this kind of strategy. Also worth to mention that that strategy is not good in Jeebus Cross or most other Jeebus variants because it is too slow. By the time you get Pit Lords, the opponent's gonna be rolling the map with angels, okay? No, don't do that. But if you're playing 6LM10A, HDDM1, some other templates, maybe some maps, then, you should be looking to maybe Demon Farm. Especially if you're struggling to get going. And, whenever you're doing that, you're probably going to be getting up to Horn Demons too, which will make for even a better stack. The reason why, despite being a really good and relevant power stack, they're not high on the list is because the unit itself kind of sucks. Very generic, like speed 5, 6, depending on whether you upgrade or not. Decent HP and decent damage, but they're okay, they're nothing special, apart from the fact that you can get a bunch of them, which is relevant, but still not relevant enough to put them at anywhere higher. Next up is we have the Vampire. Now this colossal failure of a unit does nothing, okay? No retail? Yeah, thank you. I can do no damage and not take damage at the same time. Thank you for the exchange. Not very worthwhile speed, pretty low tankiness. I feel like they are a waste of breathing space. There they go. But if you were to upgrade them, then holy damn, you have a unit, okay? These guys, like 15 of these guys can take like a maxi console already, no problem. These, by the way, for anyone unaware, the damage that they deal ends up being restored to them as HP, and they can even use this to restore dead units. So if you have enough of these guys, they can take any fight that they can vamp from. So they can take on aces, archangels, hydras, all the biggest fights in the game. These guys can take solo without losing anything. But then again, every single fight is all or nothing. They're either going to be surviving without any losses, or they're going to be dying without doing much at all. So you need to be pretty good at the game to, you know, be able to tell what these thresholds are for what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. But if you use them to their, you know, best effectiveness, they are the most overpowered unit in the game. Their effectiveness is insane, through the roof. It is so good. Nothing really compares, really, at least in the tier 4 category. Now, then again, they do have their downsides, right? There's units that they can't vamp off of. Namely, the tier 4 conflicts unit, the fire and the energy elementals. Now, apart from countering the vampire, not really. They don't actually do a lot at all. These guys are pretty good for when you have Armageddon. They can be your meat to cast Armageddon off of. Of course, you want the Phoenix or like an exotic, a big dragon in the later stages of the game, but these guys can actually get you rolling. They're pretty good, okay at doing that, but apart from that, they are basically a swordsman. And they're less preferable than a swordsman because the build path doesn't really lead into anything that worthwhile anyway. I would still put them at C tier. They are usable, but not that good. But then again, when you upgrade to Energy Ellie, you get a ton of speed. And speed is very, very valuable, especially when you're playing Luna, especially when you're trying to armor bomb, and they become far more menacing units in terms of utility. And because of that, I would actually put them at low A tier. They're pretty good when you upgrade them. Just the base unit is lackluster. Next up is we have the Medusas. Very much like the Magi, except they're fat, and they don't have a lot of shots, and yeah, they're not really that good. 25 HP doesn't really let them tank that much. They're not that good as a melee unit. Their special ability is to have 20% chance to stun a unit they melee attack. But then again, they're a ranged unit, so you're not going to be often melee attacking. It's kind of awkward. It's kind of all over the place. They focus on nothing. They end up being able to achieve decent results in many different situations, but they don't achieve any exceptional results in either of these situations that they could be put to use in. Because of that, I would say that they are not really a worthwhile power stack, and they are basically just meat that you buy. You know, you build the Medusa dwelling, and then you get 100 HP worth of meat, 4 times 25, and that's all they're used for. Because of that, I would actually put Medusa at D tier. They're still represented because you do want meat, but they are still pretty damn bad. Next up is the Medusa Queen, and they're a little bit better. As a boss stack, they can suffice, but you would rather even have Evil Eyes. You would rather have maybe even Harpy Hags are better in many scenarios. They're not that good. They're lack of shots, they're lack of designated playstyle. It's a pretty messy package that's pretty hard to use effectively. Next up is we have the Stronghold tier for unit. First off is the Ogre, the Smork. This guy is a joke. They're so powerful though. They have really high damage, really high HP, decent stats. They're a menace to fight. You can never brawl these guys. But then again, when are you going to be brawling these guys ever? You won't be brawling. They're going to be kited. They're never going to get a hit off. They are pathetic. Despite being so strong, they have so much potential, but it's never utilized. They are dumpster tier. If you upgrade them to Ogre Magi, they gain even more ludicrous stats. They get 50% extra HP compared to Ogres, and the Ogres were like tanky already. So these guys are monsters. They have the special ability to cast Bloodlust, but that's not really that relevant, you know? It's all about their smorg strength, and they do a pretty good job at actually using that, because they actually got some speed now, and they also, like, even way higher stats than the ogres. Not way higher stats, but like HP-wise, especially, they're way better. And because of this, I feel like they at least belong in C tier. Not very well represented, because you usually go for the behemoth path, which does not include the orcs or the ogres, rather includes the rocks and the actual behemoths. So yeah, low representation, slow, clunky, despite being powerful, does not actually net them a good spot on my list. But the Pegasi, by the way, you can probably see a tendency here. I really like speed in the game. Speed is utility, speed is king. It's what defines the entire playstyles, okay? So Pegasi, as fast units, is gonna be pretty good. You also have the added benefit of being able to dampen opponent's casting. What this means is that they will be using 2 more mana for every single spellcast that they do. Their shield now costs 6, their slow now costs 7, and so on. And yeah, they're pretty good utility, good to make your heroes fast, good to block the opposing shooters. They are in a decent build path for Rampart. You don't always go for these guys, but when you do, you're pretty happy with the outcome. I will put them at B tier, around here. I think that's where they belong. But the Silver Pegasi, they are able to cap out a hero's movement. Amazing! They're able to immediately turn 1 without tactics, block opposing shooters. Absolutely amazing. And of course, they have the utility still of preventing enemy spellcasting. These guys as 1-stacks are one of the best 1-stacks in the game. Super high, great utility. A tier in my opinion. Then next up is we have the Satyr. The headless Satyr apparently has many of these creatures, but you know. The Satyr is like Leprechauns, okay? They end up having really awkward playstyle. Like, you never get these on your army for the sake of casting Mirror, because that's not really a good enough, I mean, because you lose morale in order to put them in your army, and then you gain the morale back. They're basically a waste of space. You don't really want to use them like that, so when it's controlled by player, they're not really that good. And when you're fighting them in the open against some other, you know, against AI, then they actually are really awkward in the way that they play, because what they do is one of them will go in, the other one will actually cast Smurf, so they're actually like cutting themselves. You can actually single them out without actually even doing anything, so they're actually a joke to deal with, and because of that, they're in the joke unit tier. There they go. Self-cutting units do not belong high in the list, okay? The fact that they're a spellcaster makes them lower because of the way that the EI handles casting. So that's where they go. Whenever I see a boss guarded by satyrs, I'm pretty happy because, like, nice. I will not have to do any work, and these guys will actually screw themselves over. So, yeah. There they are. Then next up is the Shopshooter. Now, this unit is so hard to deal with. They're so fast, meaning that they're pretty hard to block, and they also do a very high amount of damage, and they also have no range penalty. They're not that good as a power stack because the players are usually not able to get them in high enough quantities, and it's unless you use diplomacy. But even the diplomacy, they end up being too expensive to actually make them worth it, in my opinion. But whenever you encounter them on the field, they're so hard to deal with. One of the worst things in the early game that you could possibly have. Because of that, because of how much of a threat they are, I would put them at least in A tier. Really solid, good units. And next, the last one is the Steel Golem. They were introduced in HotA as a replacement to Iron Golem in the experimental workshops. Because, you know, the Iron Golems ended up being kited infinitely, and we needed a solution for that. And this is the solution. The Steel Golem. I would say they're actually pretty hard to deal with. They're very tanky, their stats are high, and the experimental workshops, because of that, are one of the hardest creature banks to take, despite not being as rewarding as the other creature banks. And yeah, I would say they are about like an Ogre Magi. They're like somewhat menacing, they're not free, they are okay. but not that good. I mean, a Golem, it's a pretty hard call for a Golem to be good ever, so, you know. So, thank you for watching. This was my Heroes of Mana Magic Free Horn of the Abyss tier list for tier 4 units. Let me know what you think. And also check me out on Twitch, link in the description below. And also, subscribe! Most of you watching this video are subscribed right now, so, you know, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Till next time. Goodbye.